This is Gemara Menachos, Daf Lamed Gimel, and we're holding on Lamed Beis and Beis. We are 2 lines from the bottom as we continue the sugya of Stam, Sifrei Torah, Tefillin, Mezuzahs. We're in the middle of discussing various halachas regarding the mezuzah, and says the Gemara 2 lines from the bottom. V'amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel mitzvah lanicha b'toich chalaloi shel Pesach. The mitzvah mezuzah is to place it within the halal, which literally is the open airspace of the doorpost. That it has to go inward. If here's your doorpost, you want it to be on the inside, as we know, not on the outside facing outward. Says the Torah bisharecha. Obviously, bisharecha means inside and not facing outside. Explains the Gemara. Rava learned that the mitzvah is to place it in the tefach that is closest to Rosh Hashanah. Kama demerchak ma'ali. The further away from the house, it's better. Why? Let's see Rashi for a moment. Rashi in the third wide line says why? Because as we're going to see that what? The kadam pagam mitzvah kasel basi. You want to bump into the mitzvah. So the outermost edge of the doorway is where you want it. So maybe you want it so far outside, you want it even facing outward. Says the Gemara. So that's the chiddush. Kamash Malon Deloy. Kamash Malon, then not. V'amar Rav Yehuda Shmuel. Another halacha regarding mezuzah. Kasva al shnei dapin. If someone wrote it in 2 columns, psula. If you wrote the mezuzah in 2 columns, half in one column, half in the next, it's possible. Now it's interesting to note the case over here is a machlekes. Rashi learns, as we just explained, Taisus learns a little bit differently, that what's going on over here is on 2 different parchments. If you wrote it on 2 columns and put it on 2 doorposts, it is possible. So what's the obvious implication of this brayso? But if it's on 1 doorpost, ksheira. So why are you telling me it's going to be psula? Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol. Says the Gemara, Ra'uya l'shnei tzifim ka'amar. It's roi, it's fit for 2 doorposts. That's what the Tana means. Doesn't mean it's actually put in 2 different parts of the doorpost, but rather it's written in a way that's roi for 2 doorposts. So according to Taisus, that's very pashik. It's on 2 different pieces of paper. According to Rashi, it's a little bit more complicated, but it means that it could theoretically be split. Says the Gemara, another halacha of Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, b'mezuzah l'chacher heker tzir. This is one of the more complicated halachas. Which side do you put the mezuzah on? So as we're going to see, it's avad on the right side going into a room. Problem is, what do we do when it's a little bit more complicated, which in our world, in our houses, is extremely prevalent. You have doorways going into a room and out, and then another door going out, 2 doors going into your dining room. How do you view each door? So Shmuel says, a famous halacha, we go with the heker tzir, we go with the hinges, as we'll see what this means in a moment. Frekti Gemara, my heker tzir. Amar Avada, you know what a heker tzir is? Avakta. It's the sacket. Says the Gemara, Hechi Dami. What does that mean? We have a door between 2 houses, between the men's house and between the woman's house. And this is, as we explained, that you're going to have 2 different doors and you're trying to figure out which way is entering, which way is exiting, where is the Pesach. And so the Gemara is saying, you figure it out. Figure it out going by the heker tzir. You're going by the doorpost because that indicates which way the door opens, which way the door closes. And it happens to be that in a nostalgic world, this did actually work, as doors were primarily placed one way. you opened the door into the room, as everyone can envision walking into their house. No one's house is, do you open the door outward? Do you open the door inward? And therefore, I shouldn't say, as soon as you say no houses, people are going to start coming with cases not the way. But that's the most common, I think, is still the case. And therefore, that would indicate where the mezuzah goes. But as you're all realizing, thinking about different doorposts, different doorways, different entrances, lemaisa, people put doors many different ways. Therefore, the whole Heker Tzir business is not so simple nowadays. Says the Gemara, Reish Galusa Bana Beisa. Amar Le Rav Nachman Kavali Mizuzasa. Put up a mezuzah for me, Amar Rav Nachman. Tali Dasha Bereisha. First up the doorpost, and then I'll be able to know which way you go, and then you'll figure out which side the mezuzah goes on. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Rav Ason Kimin Nagor. If he made the mezuzah, he fixed it like a bolt. Psula is going to be puzzle. Now this means that if the mezuzah is horizontal, Frekti Gemara Eini Vakias Rav Yitzchak Bar Yosef Amar Kulu Mezuzasa Devei Rabbi Kemin Nagar Have Avidan. Rabbi would put all his mezuzahs in that way. Vahi Pischat Ayel Bei Rabbi, the Bei Midrash and the doorway. The Rabbi would go into the Beis Medrash. Lo Yahava Lo Mezuzah. Didn't have a mezuzah. So what do we see? Well, we see two incredible chiddushim. The second part we'll discuss eventually. But number one, we see seemingly that a mezuzah could yes be put like a nagar. Responds the Gemara, Loi kasha, ha Davida kisichsa. One is where he made it like a peg. Ha Davida kistavira. One is made like an ankle. Now, what do these things mean? One is where it's mamish horizontal. That's where it's going to be puzzle. And the other one is that he placed it on more of an angle over there. So it's a big machlokes. What does it mean, kistavira? But Rashi over here explains. Let's see if you see Rashi, some beautiful pictures. Let's go into Rashi at the end of the narrow lines. Rashi says, "Asakim nagar." If you see in this picture over here, Mamish goes not just horizontal, it goes into the doorpost. That's going to be psula. And if you go weiter in Rashi in the wide lines, Rashi says avita kisichta. Rashi says kishal umnin kazeh puzzle. And this means more like an L, shaped, then it's going to be kosher. Says the Gemara, Eini, is this true? That what was the second part of the statement of Rav Yehuda Amar Rav? That he entered into the Beis Medrash, there was no mezuzah v'hu pescha, Davi ayel bei Ravuna lebei Midrasha, v'avelei mezuzah. But lamaisa, there is an entrance, and there is a mezuzah. Says the Gemara, hu ragil havai. One was used, and that's why they had a mezuzah. Dam Rav Yehuda Amar Rav, mezuzah holich achar ragil. We go that which is normally used. If we have two entrances and one is used, that's going to be the one that needs a mezuzah. Now, this is not that someone should think that we don't put a mezuzah in all doorposts. We do kama v'kama sveikos and the Rishainim. However, over here, it might have to do more about the fact that it was a Beis Medrash. Beis Medrash already is a shayla. It was a side door, etc. Continues the Gemara. Amar Rav Zir, Amar Rav Masna, Amar Shmuel. Mitzvah lanicha b'tzchila shlish al yoin. We're learning Gan Silchas mezuzah. Where do you place the mezuzah? At the beginning of the top third. So you divide your door post, your door side into threes. You take the top third and the bottom of the top third. Ravuna Amar Magbiyah min hakarka tefach has to be tefach away from the karka. Marchika min hakar tefach tefach from the top. Chopez kula kasher could be anywhere. Lemezuzah anywhere in the middle. Shitas Ravuna Avada. We all know that that is not done. Frakti Gemara Meisvei Magvia min hakarka tefach umarka min hakar tefach chopez kula kasher lemezuzah divrei Rav Yehuda. Rabbi Yosi Oimer Ukshartim Uchsavtim Akshiva Begoiva Av Ksiva Begoiva. Just like the binding is at the top of your head, so to the Ksiva is Begoiva, the mezuzah is rain, and it should be at the top of the doorpost. It can't be towards the bottom. So what's the kasha? So Bish, 3 lines on the bottom, Rav Huna Udamar Krev Yehuda. According to Rav Huna, I understand. Rav Huna was the Shita that said it's out of the bottom tefach, out of the top tefach, is anywhere in the middle. That I understand. Why? Because he's going like Rav Yehuda, the first Shita in this Brisa. Shmuel that said the beginning of the top third, who is he going like? Like Rav Yehuda, like Rav Yaisi, because Rav Yaisi seemingly says it should be higher, and Rav Yehuda says it could be anywhere. So explains the Gemara in the last line. He's going like Rav Yaisi, and that it should be lemala. However, as we turn over to Lamed Gimel, Amid Beis, Umay Techilas. And when he said at the beginning of the top third, he meant which means he has to be distant. He just means it should not be further than a third from the top, but closer would not be a problem. Now, it is interesting to note that if anyone goes to their doorposts and actually measures the top third, and then goes and says, okay, we've asked in like the pure memory of Shmuel, the Tchila of the Shlisha Elyon, you'll notice that it's very low. Our mezuzahs are usually a good 12 inches above that. And the Shaila is so large that the Sheva Levi Dans, if even allowed to follow the pure halacha, or do we say it's yuara? It's gaiva to show that your mamish putting it there. He says it's not. But it would sound, he does conclude that one is allowed to do like the minig ha'olam, which is a drop taller. My Rava continues the Gemara in the third line. I'm giving Lamed Beis. My time. What is the reason that she was in a tefach of Shazarabim? Rabban and Amri, that was Rashi that we learned on Amud Aleph. You want to touch the mezuzah right away? Rav Chalina Misura Amar Kiechi did Tintara. You want it to be guard of the house. The mezuzah is that watchman. So if the mezuzah will be further in, you can have a whole area now watch. You want it to be closest to the outer edge. Amar Rav Chanina Barei. So give me this Kadosh Baruch Hu midas basar vidam. Midas basar vidam. 10 lines down. Lamed Gimel Lamed Beis. The way of man, Mel Yoshev mivifnim, the king is inside. V'mishamrim oisay mibachot, and the nation watches on the outside. However, midas the Kadosh Baruch Hu fakir teinoy kain. Avodim Yoshev mivifnim, we're the avodim. We're the servants of God, and we're in the house. V'hu, and Hashem himself is mishamrim bachot. The Melech himself is the guard. Shenemar, Hashem shemrecha, Hashem zilcha, yadi minecha, which is an incredible pasuk. That they're actually shitas that hold that this is what one should say every time you touch him. Is Hashem Shemrecha, Hashem Silcha, Yani Minecha. There are others that have different shitas that we'll get to as well. Says the Gemara, Darish Rav Yosef. First one line is Yosef, 12 lines down. Berei, De Rava Mishmei De Rava, Hamikla Tevach B'Sulam. If it's a tevach deep, if the mezuzah is a tevach into the doorpost, a tevach deep, it's going to be possible. Says the Gemara, let me say earlier, I bring you a raya, as we learned in Amud Aleph. Excuse me, hinicha bepasin. If you place the mezuzah in the board, or you place the brick over the mezuzah, if there's a tefach of space, you need another mezuzah. And if there's not a tefach of space, so chayr to raya. Says Gemara, no raya. That's referring to behind the door, but not within the doorpost itself, and therefore there's no raya. But we learned explicitly behind the doorway. Says the Gemara, the Brisa is explaining Ketzad. He's explaining this din. So it's not shver to be saying a din that we already knew. Tana, we learned in a Brisa, if one has a malbein shalkanim, a frame of kanim of reeds. Doorpost is not made out of wood; it's made out of reeds. Okay, Cut open one of the reeds and put the mezuzah inside. Now this will be more common for making mezuzah of reeds, but you definitely see this in Eretz Yisrael. Doorposts made out of stone. This is an old city and many places. Doorposts made out of stone that they'll chisel into the wall because there's no way to put it on top of the wall. This is only that what? If you put up the doorpost and after it's cut and put the mezuzah inside, then it's okay. If when you built the door frame, you built into the door frame a mezuzah holder with the mezuzah, and then you erected the frame with the mezuzah, that's going to be puzzle. Why? A very important word. Ta'aseh. So you have to first have the doorpost and then the mezuzah. And this could certainly happen. Someone's doing renovations, they take down a door frame. You have to be mindful the mezuzah comes down. After it's rebuilt, then the mezuzah goes back up. Defective entranceways, literally, p'turim min mezuzah. My pischei shamai. Says the Gemara, it's what? Tell us delu tikra. It's a door without a lintel. The door frame goes all the way to the top. There's no top of it. So there's no mezuzah. It doesn't have a door post. It's just the walls. So either way, we learn the aside. Only chayv and mezuzah if you have door posts and the lintel on top. Amar Rabbi Bar Shila, Amar Rav Chisach Sadra, a pavilion, Petura min hamezuzah v'she'in lo psumim. Why is it possible? It doesn't have any doorpost. Frak the Gemara Yisha psim chayiv. L'chizik tikro Davidi. Why is an achsadra made? An achsadra is just made to hold up the upper floor. Achzuki tikra, it's just to support, and therefore it's pater. Now this we learn an incredibly yesayid that any time there's a doorway that's not created as a doorway. It's a doorway that's created for what? Just to hold on the top. A support beam, very common. You have a large support beam that makes up a doorway. You're pater from mezuzah. The chiyuv mezuzah is only on an actual mezuzah. It's a real doorway. Frak the Gemara. So answers the Gemara. So the question is, why are you telling me an achsadra chayiv? I just made lachzuki tikra. Why? That's good for the chiddush. That even though there's doorposts, it's pater because it's only there to support up the roof. Amar Abaye says, Abaye chazina lo lav salidi tveimar. I saw such type of doorposts of the veimar. This like pesimi v'laslu mizuzasa kasavar lechizuk tikra hu davidi and lechayr from the Maisa. You see, it's not pshat. You're pater, but avada. You want to put up mezuzah, you can put up mezuzah. You see over here that Rav himself didn't put up mezuzah. Why? Because you're pater. Frak the Gemara in the first white line. The Raisa seemingly says explicitly that achsadra is chayiv. Explains the Gemara, achsadra is veirav. That's referring to the achsadra and the yeshiva of Rav, which is what? Achsadra veirav kin turuna mal yasahu. Says the Gemara is a regular room, so of course it's chayiv in a mezuzah. So why are you telling me that's the case? Says the Gemara, achsadra rumita, Roman achsadra, you would think it doesn't require mezuzah. The chiddush of the Brisa is that it does. And over here we're referring to is that it's not just there to hold up the roof. It just has many, many doorways. And therefore, the chiddush is that it's chayiv in mezuzah. Amar Rechav on the third white line. Amar Rav Yehuda. Bei Harziki. Harziki house. Chayiv v'shtei mezuzahs. Fraktim Amar Mai Bei Harziki. Amar Rabba Basab Mishmei Rav. Bais Shar B'suchel Lechatzir. Ubatim B'suchel Lebeishar. You have a guardhouse that is open into the chatzir. And the house goes into the guardhouse. So there's an entrance into the guardhouse, gatehouse, and then the entrance from the gate guardhouse into the chatzir. You need a mezuzah on both sides. A guardhouse open to a garden or to a room. Rav Yosi Omer Nidin Kikoitinis. Halacha is as such, like the room in Yina Mezuzah. Chamram Nidin Kavei Shar. It's like a Shar, meaning it's towards the outside, and therefore there's no Chiv of Mezuzah. What's the machlokes? Rav Shmuel Damar Tavayu Migin Labayis Kuli Ambaloi Pligi Dechayv. If from the garden to the house, on that way, everyone agrees, you're chayv. My tema be a device, you're going into a house. And of course, the mezuzah, as we learned earlier, is the doorpost guarding the house. So the entranceway, the juncture between guardhouse and house, that avada is chayv in mezuzah. What's the machlokes? Ki pligi mi bayis legina the other way. So Mar Savar Kitani is Seker. So one opinion holds, Rav Yosi says the Kitani is a Seker, that room, and therefore it's Potter. Mar Savar Gina, therefore it's Chayv. Mar Savar Gina Eker, therefore it is Potter. That's one way of learning the machlokes. Rav Yosi went to Vayam mi bayis legina kol amalei pligi de Pot. My time up is the opposite. Everyone holds that juncture, it's just going into the garden, and therefore there's no Chiyim Mezuzah. Keep ligi. What's the machlokes? Migina libayis. Marsavar be debayis who marsavar kula daita the gina hu davida. So the Chachamim hold that kula, the entire gatehouse. Why is the entire gatehouse there? Adaita the gina hu davida. The entire thing is there for the purpose of the gina. As we turn over to Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph, and the Gemara concludes. Abaye v'Rava, a short story, Avdei Karaba v'Rav Yosef. That Abaye and Rava, they did like Rabba and Rav Yosef, that they said that it's potter from mezuzah. Rav Ashi Avi Karavu Shmuel l'chumra v'helchasa, and says the Gemara Karavu Shmuel l'chumra. Then in this case we pass like Rav and Shmuel that l'chumra, that we view it as if it's going to the house, and therefore it's going to need a mezuzah, and the machlokes is just going to be on the other side. And of course, this is where things are a little bit complicated in the world of mezuzah, but we'll pick it up from here, b'siyata dishmaya.